Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance, and this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from Elaine, and here's her story. Hi, Ollie. I've been enjoying your videos for a few months now. I really like what you are doing for your subscribers. I fell down the YouTube narcissism rabbit hole this past summer and have learned so much about myself and what was really happening to me during my first marriage. This letter isn't about that, though. It's about what I recently went through with my older brother. I watched one of your videos where you were talking about Facebook being a platform for narcs, and that's what this story is about, as most of it played out on Facebook. That's an older video, too. I remember making that one. I am one of 6 siblings. The youngest daughter. I have four brothers. This is about my next older brother. He is 8 years older than me. I'll call him R. He was always very smart, had a way with words, talented at storytelling, songwriting, and satire. I should say here that we all had a very normal upbringing. There was no abuse or neglect. Back in the 90s, he was briefly married to a woman who was the most ridiculously outrageous narcissist you could imagine. This woman was cartoonish. I never met anyone with such an inflated sense of self. She was horrible to him and to all of us. They had one child. Everyone in the family was happy when he divorced her. She was incredibly toxic. She really doesn't have a part in this story, just giving some background. For a while after the divorce, he went back to his old happy self and would spend time with us at family gatherings. We're a large family and far-flung now, so getting together would mean picking a place to travel to for a family vacation. After a few years, he stopped coming to those, always citing money problems. He really only stayed close to my brother Kay, closest to him in age and location. Any information or communication with R would come from Kay and his wife. Enter Facebook several years ago. Pretty much all of us are on Facebook, and it's a good way to keep in touch with family members since we are so far apart. R would get on Facebook for a few months, interact with everyone, then suddenly deactivate his account and disappear for a year or so. His son is on, so messages would get passed through him. R would come back, leave, come back pretty regularly. One year we were trying to get us all together for Christmas. Everyone traveled to my parents' house in Oregon, except R. Money. He did show up later that spring with his son, but didn't tell anyone he was coming. Just showed up at my parents' house, so there was no time for the rest of us to get together. He could afford that. June 2015 was my parents' 60th anniversary. We had arranged for all 6 of us to come secretly to surprise Mom and Dad. R said he was coming, would ride his motorcycle from Denver to Oregon. The day before the party, when Kay and his family flew in, they told me R wasn't coming. He had been having headaches and vision problems and couldn't ride all that way. Couldn't afford a plane ticket. Sister-in-law offered to buy his ticket so he could fly out with them, but he refused. So once again, only the 5 of us. A couple months later, we learned that his headaches were caused by a brain tumor on his optic nerve. It wasn't malignant. He scheduled a surgery to remove the tumor. Mom and I flew out to be there for the surgery and to stay with my teenage nephew while he was in the hospital. I could only stay a couple days. My mom stayed another week to take care of him until my sister-in-law could get there. His surgery was successful in that they removed the tumor, but they left him with a lot of nerve damage on that side of the face, on that side of his face. He lost use of that eye. He can still see out of it, but the nerve damage left him unable to open his eyelid. About 6 months later, he got back on Facebook. He would post pictures of himself wearing an eye patch and a bandana to cover the surgery scar on his head. He would joke about being a pirate and made a funny Facebook name referencing this rather than his own. He seemed back to his old self from years ago. He would post jokes, he uploaded stories and songs he had written, etc. Then the election happened. Yeah, a lot of people were upset about the whole Trump thing, but he took it to a whole new crazy level. It was like a personal affront to him particularly. Everything he posted was rants about Trump. and rants would get angrier and more ugly and profane as they went on. Then he started attacking anyone who was conservative politically. Then it became about Christians. Anyone who was a Christian was a narrow-minded, intolerant bigot. Anyone who disagreed with this would be attacked, called names, and sworn at. Irony? Like I said, we are a big family. I'd say we are pretty split between members who are religious and who aren't. Some are liberals, some are conservatives, most somewhere in the middle. All are respectful of each other, except R. Well, most of us just ignored the ugly posts. He would post normal things every once in a while that we would comment on, but they were getting few and far between. He got really ugly with one of our cousins who had the nerve to point out his bitterness. He called her every name in the book and then said he had the right to be bitter since he had pancreatic cancer and only 6 months to live. No, he hadn't been diagnosed, nor had he been to a doctor. He just had the symptoms, so that was that. Of pancreatic cancer, pretty specific symptoms, I guess. Anyone who responded to this as if it were real, he would attack and call them morons who didn't read his statement that he would never go to a doctor again after they screwed up his brain surgery. Doctors are all idiots and criminals, etc., etc. Shortly after this, he left Facebook again, but not before creating a second account that he would use to argue with himself and call himself an asshole. I began to think the surgery left him brain damage. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I was thinking as well. I'm thinking that nerve damage got progressively worse, and I've seen this. My Aunt Lita, who I've talked about several times, who had gone no contact from the family, who they tried to pin things on, was, she had like 3 or 4 brain surgeries. I'm not sure it was multiple. And she seemed to get worse after every one. You operate on the brain, bad things can happen. Now, you can't leave a brain tumor, but depending on where it is, you can damage a part of the brain that affects your impulse control, your reasoning skills, all of that. I mean, if he wasn't overly political to begin with, I would be scratched. That would be a head scratcher to me. Especially since he'd be so anti-Trump, but yet he's pissed off at the medical industry. That seems like a bit of a contradiction, no? On August 10th, R got back on Facebook, said he'd been working on his anger issues and thought he could behave on social media now. And for a couple weeks he did. Then the ranting and name-calling started again, the whole Christians are evil thing. I should say here that Mom is one of the family members who's devoutly religious, but she never argued with him or responded to any of these posts, just the ones that weren't ugly. In September, he started making a post about how nobody gave a shit about him to prove his point. He brought up how nobody in his oh-so-Christian family had told him happy birthday. I think there's a lot you're leaving out about R, because he seems like your typical little spoiled, entitled baby boy. He's living out in Denver. I mean, also something could have went on with him and your mother. He's pissed off about something and he's focusing in on the Christianity. And if your mother's the one who's devoutly Christian and he's taking these shots at her, he's attacking her. That's what they do. Understand, when they're yelling about Trump, they're not yelling about Trump. They're not. When they're freaking out and screaming in the streets and throwing shit, that's not Trump. They're mad at their dad. They're mad at their mom. They're mad at their family. They're projecting it all. In September, he started making posts about how nobody gave a shit about him to prove his point. He brought up how nobody in his oh-so-Christian family had told him happy birthday. So obviously he has no family, because the only people who acknowledged his birthday were the co-workers that he saw that day. His birthday is August 7th. Think about that for a second. So it's 3 days before his birthday. Oh wait, it's 3 days after his birthday. Oh, wait a minute. I got it. He didn't even get back on Facebook. I got you. He didn't get back on Facebook to August 10th. Yeah, he's completely around. Listen, when you're dealing with people like this, they're the accusation. That's all that matters. Not the truth. Not the truth. It's only the accusation that matters. I mean, that's what you see in the media. That's why the media can get caught in lie after lie after lie daily. Most recent example that just paused is Trump feeding the fish, the edited video. That was on CNN. I mean, that's just blatantly lying. Because the accusation means more than the truth. This was such an obvious attack on my mother. Obviously. My 80-year-old mother, who has just lost her husband and her home in one fell swoop. I had been ignoring his nastiness for months. I couldn't let this one go. I had been watching Narcissism videos for about a month and was understanding what was happening during this last foray into Facebook. My first response was to point out logically that since he was off Facebook, his birthday would be pretty hard for anyone to send him a birthday message via Facebook. I also told him that he had gotten plenty of birthday greetings from his family if he'd actually been with his family. I knew what this would do. I had seen it play out with others over the past year, but I didn't care. So of course, how dare I attack him like that, and how dare I put him down for not being able to afford to travel to the funeral? Obviously, I didn't give a shit about him, didn't consider him family, etc. I'm omitting all the profanity. I again pointed out his logical fallacy, knowing it was useless. Told him to play the emotional blackmail card on someone else stupid enough to pick it up, and I would happily consider my family to be people who didn't stoop to such disgusting and childish levels. He gave me another couple of fuck yous and deleted his account. I wish I had gotten a screenshot of the conversation before he deleted it, just so you can enjoy the crazy. My paraphrasing doesn't do it justice. If he follows his normal pattern and gets back on Facebook in a few months, I will not have him back in my life. I don't need the crazy. Anyway, after all that, I have a question for you. I know you're not a doctor and can't give a definitive answer, just curious about your opinion. Or maybe another viewer has had a situation like this. Was he always a crazy narc, just super covert? Or do you think it's possible that the brain surgery damaged his personality somehow? I think it's possible. Both are possible. But you have to ask, why has he been living that far away for so long from your mother? You know, the brain surgery could have damaged something in him where it's impulse control, and now he sees this incident or whatever happened, whatever reason he's fixating on your mother for. Are you sure there's nothing there? That doesn't necessarily mean sexually or any it could be, it couldn't be, it could be something else. And he might be vulnerable. And look, this stuff, when you're vulnerable like that, it's easy to get caught up in these rage fits, and to be able to blame Trump for all your problems. But he's not blaming Trump. It's your mother. Or maybe it was always hidden, or whatever happened during the surgery, he no longer has the ability to hide it. Exactly. He lost his filter, so to speak. Exactly. That's exactly what I think might have happened. I think he lost his filter. It wouldn't make a difference to me, even if it wasn't totally his fault. I don't need that ugliness in my life. No, it's toxic. It's completely toxic, and he's not going to stop. It's only going to get worse. I'm just curious if you or a viewer has ever had experience with a drastic personality change after a brain injury. Thank you for your time, Elaine. Well, yeah, my Aunt Lita. But, they were having issues with Lita before. I mean, I've talked about Lita pretty in depth, about how when she tried to leave originally her marriage after 6 months, the family turned on her like they turned on me, and my father threatened her and told her she'd be out of the family. But then she started being diagnosed with brain tumors. She had multiple surgeries, at least 3, possibly 4 or 5. And she finally went no contact after just losing shit on my mother and Adrienne, which makes sense. So what I think is it took her filter off. For her in a good way, for him in a bad way. Or it took his filter to stand up to your mother for whatever he thinks she wronged him on. But it's not really rational either, what he's doing, to project it on to politics. But this is what happens. I mean, that's what you're seeing in the street. You're seeing this rage of narcissists projecting their rage over Trump, but it's not over Trump. It's projected rage back on their parents or their abuse givers or whoever it is. So what I think we have an example of here is when the narcissist loses their filter. Bottom line. So either way, it's toxic and you don't need it in your life. So good luck with that. So thank you, Elaine, for your story and your contribution. I really appreciate it. I hope this helps. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up Skype, a phone call, have a private video made or a Facebook live chat, or you'd like to sponsor a video just like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to help it expand, grow, and succeed, because this channel is still sponsored and funded 100% by contributions from all of you. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with that PayPal and email link in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been The Narcissistic Resistance.